Hey there, I'm Tomlin's Nyback. This is 365 Days Towards Racial Change, and day 275 here, mid December. Took a hiatus. I went to school. Going to try to catch up a little bit. I don't think I'll be finished before the end of the year. I'm not really forcing myself to be. Life is life. And like yesterday, I talked about it's probably proper that some of this project spill into 2020 because 2020 is going to be such an important year for the planet Earth, as all eyes are on America, its dysfunctions, its elections, and all this stuff. And carry on some of the thought, I freeform first 3 minutes before we get into story time, Uncle Tom's Cabin, about having more of our discourse. And I got some friends that may help me with this. It's about our experience. I don't know if when we're sharing coffee with each other or walking in the park, even with a close friend, how race and other issues are not talked about or should be talked about more frequently, focused on, in your love relationship, in your employer relationship, right? A lot of laws on the books and stuff, and we don't talk about this and all that, I'm starting to feel as though race, sex, um, your gender, age, I think some of that stuff should be talked about honestly right from the get-go. You know what? If you're a white supremacist and all, you have a right to be that, but it's wrong for you to use that experience and if you're in a position of power to hinder me and me not know that you're a white supremacist and that you utterly hate my guts and that you are going to do everything you can to prevent me from ascending in the system. Well, we in my experience, I always get blindsided, you know, and officially it looks like a lot of other things, but in reality, it's racism, it's sexism, it's ageism, right? Those are the primary, those are the roots of the conversation, um, and and I think I've been reflecting now that I've had time. I've had a great semester, learned some great new stuff, started the foundations of learning another language and all that. But now that I had some rest and some proper sleep, I'm like, I look back over my experiences where I've been at a disadvantage or where I've been abused and all that. And I say, there's a question mark now on a lot of those experiences, whether or not they were racially motivated experiences. I know 2014, 15, I went through some intense issues, but that was age, sex, and race. All that I had the trifecta going on against me. And in some ways, gender as well. Gender and sex are two different things. Some ways, gender as well, because I was not presenting in a way that people probably would have desired. Uh, but but uh, but even that aside, I look back at childhood, different experiences where Either I'm allowed to stay living, live an experience of ignorance, or I'm prevented from um, succeeding and under various creative excuses, right? But that no one's ever explicitly said my age, my sex, my color is an issue is actually evidence of it being so. You know, because that you can't live in America anyway, and I think anywhere in the world without considering those three. That's how we use those naturally as judgments to kind of move the conversation along. Yet I think we're in this automated mode. We're running each other over. I wonder where I've exercised that same um, kind of irrational way of judging people to put them at a disadvantage. You know, I think I've definitely done it with age. I'll confess that. Not so much with color. My relationship with black people, I would say, is different because I'm black. You know, but I guess it has happened with black folks. You know, but what would the world be like if we had that conversation more readily, ready to go at the beginning? Whether I'm an ambassador to some foreign country, human resources. Hi, oh, you're black, you're a male, and you're older. Okay, let's start the conversation there. A romantic relationship potential. I'm a single man now. You know, I shake hands with my uh, hopeful future wife, right? Oh, okay, you're a female, you're very beautiful. Your skin color and your age. All right, let's start the conversation right there. Seems pretty brutal, but that's the conversation we need to have. If we're going to expose ourselves in the most intimate ways possible, then hell yeah, those three issues are um, very important. And notice that, like I said yesterday, our conversation about race in America, stuff like that, that's just a blueprint. You can hang any conversation on the points we discuss here at Racial Change. Again, I'm Tomlin's Back. This is day 275 going down on us. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I've read 3 of his books. I invite you to get these. I'll tell you where to get these in just a moment. If you only get one of his books, get this one. He suggests some other material of his. I say get this one, and you'll readily get everything. Of course, I bought this 3-book pack, which is a good idea to do that. Get this, A Black History Reader. 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. An amazing book. And through this past year, we've talked on a lot of those questions. Black History, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. I talk about the discrepancies between white and black America. A lot of history in there as well. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Behind you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find black women coming together, having community, getting their support and their needs met. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook experience. If you've got a business mind, want to get into black business support, from that sector, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School, and maybe that will resonate. I know there's a lot of testimonials there, people that have gotten a lot of help. I've taken some of his free samples and stuff. He's got a subscription service going on that I don't much care for. But he's just a good guy. He's very sincere, and I like the work that he's doing over there. I still get his emails for podcasts and chats and things like that. And finally, get this book as well, Uncle Tom's Cabin. America needs to revisit this. Racism hasn't gone anywhere, and slavery, in my view, hasn't gone anywhere. We just as enslaved. Listen, in slavery, it's forget about whips, chains, confinement, and stuff like that you think about slavery. Slavery is one group preventing another group from self-determining their path in life. That's my experience in America. I'm not doing what I want to do, and my resources are being spent in ways I don't know, top secret, government, and stuff like that. You have these guys arguing all day on the hill they're on salaries. I pay for that, but I don't have a say. If my black ass comes up into the house, what's going on here? Hey, get that guy out of there. Hey, what y'all doing up here talking about? They kick my ass to the curb. Get that guy out of there. Day 275, Uncle Tom's Cabin. All right. Now, the story, Harriet Beecher Stowe, it's a big story, right? It's centered around Uncle Tom, but there's a couple other pieces that Harriet's going to bring together later on. And so she wants to revisit George and Eliza and little Harry. Remember, they escaped early in the book. So that they're about to cross one of the Great Lakes going into Canada. And so we got to revisit, see how they're doing, because later on in the story, it's going to be important how they figure into this. Even though they're way up north and Tom is down in Louisiana. The chapter is entitled Liberty. Tom Loker, the professional slave bounty hunter guy, he's mending after being shot and he fell down the precipice. Remember that climactic scene where the fugitives were trapped up there, but they shot Tom and Tom fell down all busted up almost at the feet of his comrades, but they were drunk and they left him there. Remember that? Oh, but he's on the mend, and the kindness of the Quakers. At that time, Quakers are traditionally people that their religion is against any kind of slavery, and they don't participate in war. So that he's in their hands, but he's not confined or a prisoner or anything. He's recovering, and the kindness of them, and that George didn't kill him. I think if I was running away and my enemy was there at my feet, I'm going to have to do a lot of mental calculus not to make sure that individual does not come after me later. Let me just say that. But all this kindness going on has given Tom a change of heart. We don't know if it's permanent or whatever, but at least in regards to George, Eliza, little Harry, he's backed off. He's even given them information. He's saying, watch out. He's saying what they're looking for. They know you're going to try to cross into Canada. Be careful. So he's giving them little tidbits of information to help make their journey smooth. Good, reliable stuff too. But so Tom, he's a big guy. He's fussing the Quaker female. I guess she may be the husband or something. I didn't quite get who she was in the narrative, but she's trying to make the bed. Tom is tearing up the bed, and she's making it up again. Tom is cursing Tom Loker and all this stuff. It's like an opening scene you'd see on television, some drama, right? Um, George, um, you know, from the beginning of the story, has the issue. His problem is he's being prevented from self-determining. He's smarter than the white community around him. Remember, early on in the story, I think it's the second chapter, he has improved the process production of the company that his master, um, conscripted him to. Right, that was common. Your slave master, maybe in the off season or when the harvest is slow, can tell the slaves go work somewhere else, and get the profits from there. But George's master didn't like the accolades, didn't like how good George felt and made it. So he took George out of that, work that challenged his body and mind and put him to brute labor on the plantation because he was so spiteful. So George is, um, he's mentally better than the white folks around him and all that. And remember, meritorious manumission. That was one meritorious manumission clause that you could get manumission freedom from um, making life more profitable for your master, right? But his master went the other way. It's such a just a jackass. That's all I can put it. You know. Remember this as we move through Harriet's book. These are snapshots of the prevailing culture, right? These are instances of the way things were up and down slavedom in America. This is just her little story about a sliver of some unique experience. This is common for a master to be spiteful if his slave appears better than him. There are certain laws that indicate, um, that it's almost necessary, illegal to push back on a slave being uppity in that way in the eyes of their master. You know, George's role, Harriet's using him as that affirmative black voice, the one who knows self-determination is just as valid as Uncle Tom's allegiance to a God. Just George's identity is wrapped up in dignity, in his own dignity in that way. It's no more or less than Uncle Tom's, but he chooses to identify and project an affirmed human being into the world. You know, there's no need for submission when we are all face-to-face equals. There's no upper and lower class. We're all equal. We're part of a body, right? So that's what I get from George's experience. Now he's sitting back. He's appraising the situation. He's looking at his wife because Eliza, she's going to go as kind of a white dude, so she's getting on clothes, she's wearing gloves, she's learning how to walk like a dude and stuff like that. Well, in the midst of this, Harriet Beecher Stowe goes into George's mind. Let me read a portion of that to you. Is there anything in it glorious and dear for a nation that is not also glorious and dear for a man? What is freedom to a nation but freedom to the individuals in it? What is freedom to that young man who sits there with his arms folded over his broad chest, the tint of African blood in his cheek, its dark fire in his eye? What is freedom to George Harris? To your father's freedom was the right of a nation to be a nation, speaking of the revolution. To him it is the right of a man to be a man and not a brute, the right to call the wife of his bosom his wife, to protect her from lawless violence, the right to protect and educate his child, the right to have a home of his own, a religion of his own, a character of his own, unsubject to the will of another. All these thoughts were rolling and seething in George's breast as he was pensively leaning his head on his hand, watching his wife get ready for this last trek journey up into Canada and so forth, right? And that's the hypocrisy of America. Like it's amazing. I've said it a couple times through this series, through this channel. America is going to be pulled up and challenged one day on this point that it made war, separated itself from an oppressive, abusive monarchical power, but then turned around and became that very thing on a segment of uh, its own citizens. That's super wrong, right? And America wants that segment, black people, to go through the courts and legislations and reparations and all that. Black people to get a pass. We laid down blood, lives, fought in every war, built the nation, made profit. Some of these big businesses around here are founded on slave labor and have not made any due reparations for that. Well, when are we going to see some justice around that issue? I think we will, and it's going to be a painful transition for a lot of people. I think we will someday. I might not see it, but we've tried everything else. We've spoken softly. We've rioted in the streets. We've been lynched, raped, bombed, shot in our homes by police. Like, wow. Some's got to turn around and it's going to be someone else's turn to put that kind of skin, that level of skin in the game. And it's not going to be pleasant. Remember how my life was errant for the longest time, and I was riding my bicycle drunk. I passed out on the bicycle, ran into a bridge kind of abutment and broke my collarbone. But when it happened, I passed out and the collarbone had not separated. It just broke. And I passed out and I got up, and when the paramedics were working on me, the bone shifted. All this razor sharp bone shifted inside my flesh, and it felt like the pain of the world was on my shoulder right there. You know, you want to get drunk, you want to get high, you want to ride your bike. Same thing happened to my father. Yeah, that you keep sowing this behavior, this is what you get back. Oh, America. But I love you, America. need compassion and stuff. There's some other issues. There's some other issues need to be talked about, but change is going to come and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad when it comes. But it's going to be the beginning of real change, bringing real equity in the system, a real change of mind in those in power and those disadvantaged to have some hope and to start living responsibly as well. Eliza's dressed, ready to go. Harry's dressed as a little girl. You know, Harry's one of those. He's a boy, but he's probably got an angelic little face. He's very light skinned. His hair is long. You know, the influence of white blood is on these individuals. So Harry's hair lays down. You know, it's longish and stuff like that. So he's dressed as a little girl. Now they're able to travel. They're nearly white anyway. Remember, George, he can pass as a Hispanic male just as well. Anyway, so they're not under too much danger at this probably high traffic area and all that, and they make it to Canada, no problem. Dr. Anderson, I think this is in a video, maybe in his books, but he says, you know, be careful about this freedom in Canada because Canada was a slave nation for a while as well, right? So what Dr. Anderson talks about is that you had escaping slaves crossing each other on the Great Lakes, thinking they're going to freedom. You know, the most their freedom, they got their freedom because they were new faces in the space. You know, they were probably away from the hands of bounty hunters and things like that. So they could start a new life in a new space like that. But they were, you know, crossing each other on the lakes. I bet you there was a kind of underground railroad in Canada to get slaves out of there to come to at least the northern areas of America. But what a story. So Eliza, little Harry, and George are doing well there in chapter 37. We wanted to kind of take their pulse and bring them to remembrance. A couple more chapters to go in the story. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Day 275. 90 days to go here, or so. Sounds like that. It's 365. Yeah, whatever. And you hang in there. We're going to get it done. I promise you. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's 365 days towards racial change. Come join me tomorrow. See what kind of trouble we can get into. Bye-bye.